What's up, guys? Michael James with Beyond the Forbidden. Do you want to receive extra content that's not viewed anywhere else? Support Beyond the Forbidden on Patreon to receive plus content that is only exclusive to members of Beyond the Forbidden. Content like the full 2-hour podcast, bonus shows, full length video interviews, behind the scenes footage with guests, and much more. So, what do you have to lose? Go to patreon.com/Beyond the Forbidden. That's patreon.com/Beyond the Forbidden and become a member of Beyond the Forbidden for just $5 a month. And also check the description for the links.
I just want to say to start off with, I think you and I have something in common if we spent time in the military. I think you mentioned that to me in your interview request, and I was in the Army from 1982 to 1986. And I can honestly say that if I had not joined the military and started making my own path, I don't think I would have ever woke up, not only to the subject matter that I talk about, but to anything. Because the pressure within my families and my family system and surroundings was, conform. And by joining the Army and starting to go live in different places and do different things and challenge myself and see different parts of the world, I started to break away. And I think that's when I started to unplug. And I haven't been a TV watcher in years. I did when I was growing up. My husband liked to watch television. He was a retired Army sergeant. He passed away in 2001. And I found out in 2017 that it was resulting from exposure to Agent Orange, which I didn't know at the time. I didn't know what was going on. But that just kind of got my whole life going in a different path than most people would even dream of. And having choice points along the way where I could have either stayed or moved, and I had to, move, whether physically or in a different direction. Otherwise, I would have been stuck if I had stayed where I was. A lot of good times, a lot of painful times within that, but it was what kept propelling me forward to coming into the stream of information that I share through my YouTube channel, which is based on my blog. And I started blogging in June of 2018. And I would say between,
I don't mean to interrupt, Michelle, but go ahead and throw your links and everything else out there in the beginning for people to follow you on social media, YouTube, or your blog. Go ahead and throw all that out right now so people can go ahead and search for you.
Well, the main thing is my website is piercingtheveilofillusion.com. And everything that's on my YouTube channel starts there because I just convert them into videos. And then the easiest way to find my YouTube channel is just to type my name in, Michelle, Michelle, Gibson, Gibson. And then if you type Moors after my name, Moors, my YouTube channel will pop right up. Because there's certainly more than one Michelle Gibson out there, but that one is my particular channel. And, like I said, because I took a different path, I think I've been connected to this information my whole life, long before I became consciously aware of it, because it's like I've been picking up all these puzzle pieces my whole life, including the time I spent in the military and I was stationed in Germany and things that I learned then and, places that I went and different places I lived in the States. It's just I've been collecting information, and then I started piecing it together. I guess around 2014, 2015 was when I started to see this ancient civilization around me, and I was living in Oklahoma at the time. And I started my own unique research because I was kind of in learning mode up until that point. I wanted to find out because I was getting these pieces. I wanted to see what was going on. And then when I found a star tetrahedron by connecting cities in North America was my own breakthrough. And that was when I basically started writing down cities and places that were in alignment. And then I started tracking those alignments, and I started to see everything being the same all over the earth. And then I started to see how that's who it was, and then how that civilization got taken down. And then when I started doing timeline research, it went to a whole nother level. And, it's like the shape of the earth is nothing
Yeah.
compared to all the lies that we've been told. That's just the tip of the iceberg, and that's just to keep us like that at each other. Though I didn't start out with an opinion, but I can see where they've manipulated our perception of space and time. And so, yeah, if we're not a spinning ball, then everything's moving around us. And I don't go too far with that because it's not my thing. My thing is bringing back this ancient civilization and the timeline research and what's taken place here. I'll let other people tackle the flat earth thing, but it truly it's making more and more sense to me that, not only is this reality not what we've been told, it's, the shape of it too is in there.
Mike Wilkerson, he does the stone hearts and the stone trees and like the titans that turn into mountains and stuff. It's interesting. I don't know what to think about it, but it's very,
I think we're all guided to do certain things, and I think it's all important. And the thing for me is I see intentionally man-made infrastructure all over, terraforming all over. I think there's a lot more that was man-made, a much better version of man than we are, and bigger. And that there's been a civilization on this earth for a very, very long time, far longer than what we've been told. So my position is kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
I don't see everything as a mud fossil, but I'm not saying that they're not there. I don't see everything as a giant tree. I'm not saying that they weren't there. My thing is that
I think you can now.
Okay. I can show you curving the same shapes of rivers, and I call this Nakia shaped river, exact same shape, the bends on every continent. I don't believe that was natural. I think that serves a function on the Earth's grid system, that there's some kind of function with that shape, and that it's not the result of natural forces, and that they're actually canal systems. And you can see that where they have masonry banks, like the Thames River in London. It has masonry banks. It's man-made, but it's always called natural, which is how they, hide it from us.
Just like just like the canal system. We have a lot of canals here in Louisiana. A lot.
Right. Absolutely. And you live in what was called Monroe, Ouachita proper. You live at the heart of the ancient Ouachita Empire, and the imperial seat might have been Poverty Point, but it was somewhere around Monroe. And the Ouachita are the most ancient people on earth, and they're still here. They still exist.
you know almost more about where I live than I know where I live, because this place, people don't understand, Michelle, that people look abroad for mysteries and everything, for conspiracies or whatever, conspiracies of the ancient past, whatever it is. But all you have to do is look in your backyard. Poverty Point's a hot skip and a jump from me, maybe just outside of Tallulah, maybe 30 minutes from here, maybe. Just look in your backyard.
Right. And that's what I tell people, just walk out your front door. Yeah. And that was what it was like for me when I started waking up to this in Oklahoma City. I live in an apartment complex, and I'm seeing these, stones just outside my door that were shaped. And then I took a walk around the block. I'm starting to see the earthworks there, and the same earthworks in Louisiana. Perfectly geometric shapes all around. And again, we don't think of it because we haven't been taught about it. And I can tell you from the trip that I took to Monroe with some of my friends, and we met a Ouachita lady there, that I was standing in the parking lot of the Motel 6 waiting for her to come meet us there, and I could just feel the energy going through my legs. And that's really unusual for me. I mean, I'm sensitive to some things, sensations, that kind of thing. I could just feel it.
Yeah.
And again, there's so many things that drown that out, and the controllers have deliberately deconstructed the grid There's still quite a bit of it left, but they changed it. They got rid of it. Some of it they still use, but that's the thing. There was a very highly advanced free energy generating grid system all over the earth. And my work is dedicated to showing that. I can sit here and talk all day, but if I don't show you that, I'm just another talking head. And it's real. It's just you have to get to the truth. You just have to let go of everything you ever believed to be true.
Yeah.
And because I lived a different life, it was just easier for me to do than most people. And I wanted to know the truth. And when I'm like, I want to know the truth happened, I really want to know this. I want to know who these people were. And that was when I first learned about the Washita.
Just so people, what does she mean, Washita? And because she mentioned Monroe, Washita. I live in West Monroe, which is west side of the Washita River, part of Monroe, but west side of the river, in Washita Parish, Louisiana. Yes, we have parishes. We don't have counties here. But just to clarify that. But you was talking about mounds also, Michelle, or we were a while ago with back in August, down south from where I live in Baton Rouge, Brooks Elwood I had on the show to talk about the mounds that he discovered on LSU's campus. He's a professor down there. And I don't know if you heard about that, but LSU's mounds could be oldest human-made structure in North America. And he got a lot of heat off that. He told me he told me stuff behind the scenes that he did not say on the show. Because he's
if you look up Watson Brake mounds, I think Watson Brake might have that distinction. And that's in if I wasn't trying to think of it, I can think of it. It's south of Monroe. The Watson Brake mounds are on private property. But the mounds that we're talking about,
it says Washita Parish,
are the same age as the mounds over in England that are so old. Even older than probably Stonehenge, even though you hear people say nowadays that they just made that. But whatever the case may be, there's ancient mounds over in Great Britain that are the same age as the ones here. But that's not what our history tells us. And so, to put that in perspective, they're 5,000, somewhere along the lines of 5,000 years old. Wow. At least.
You were putting me to school with some of this stuff, because this, like, I wasn't joking. You know more about where I live than I know where I live, which I research all type of things. I try to focus on particular things, because I'll have guests on with conspiracies, ancient mysteries, the occult, paranormal, I like to kind of dab into all of it. But with the Watson Brake mounds, didn't even know about that.
And they're not open to the public. They're not open to the public. And I probably might not have known about them, except we went to see the Washita lady down there.
Wow.
That's a whole story in
itself. But you was talking about your military background.
Mm-hmm.
I came back from basic training and AIT, which I stayed straight through. It was like 24, 25 weeks in January of 06. And maybe in February, March, but it was in early 06 is kind of when I had my awakening, which I've always been interested in UFOs, the paranormal, ghosts, things like that. I had my own ghost story when I was a kid. My great grandfather, who was a Pan Am American pilot and also in the Cold War, he's the one that got me interested in stuff like JFK and UFOs and ghosts and paranormal, a lot of basic things like that when I was younger. But I got my feet wet. I just jumped off the deep end and dive in the swimming pool in 06. It's kind of when everything. I'm like, I just joined the military, which I hate talking about it, because people think I'm very unpatriotic when I talk about certain things like 9/11 or things like that. You know what I mean? That's far
Mhm.
from it. I love this country. I love living here.
Yep.
I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I sign an oath to against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You know,
Right.
so that's why I try to touch on everything. But '06 was just a,
Right.
it hit me like a.
And that was kind of around the same time I started waking up to more. I left a very difficult relationship and moved back to Fairbanks, Alaska, which is where my husband and I had lived from 94 to 99. And I moved there as a widow, but I knew how to live there because I had the experience before. It's not something I would recommend. If you've never lived in Fairbanks before and don't know what you're getting into, don't do it. But I already had established the how-tos, and it actually was an amazing time. And that was when I really started to wake up to more. And I learned about sacred geometry from a workshop, a flower life workshop I attended while I was there. And had a circle of friends that were kind of open to other ways of thinking. And into the Mayan calendar was drawing up close, and I was really fascinated with that. And I picked up a lot of information about that. So by the end of 2012, I was pretty awake. I was awake to, the idea of unity, consciousness, and oneness, and all this other stuff. And then between 2012 and 2016, I learned not only how dark the dark was, which was an eye opener. I started coming into what became the basis for my own original research. It was like I got all the puzzle pieces all collected together, and I was able to find something which helped me organize that. And so what I wanted to show you is what I call the North American star tetrahedron. And a friend of mine in Oklahoma that was one of my travel friends, and she was one of the friends I went to Monroe with, gave me a flat map of the Earth. I still have it. It's in terrible shape. And I set it up on my dining room table, and I just kind of looked at it. It's in horrible shape. I just kind of looked at it. And as I'm eating, this is over a period of time, I'm noticing cities lining up in lines, and it's kind of hard to tell, but I have faint lines here.
Yeah.
And then like I said, I had learned about sacred geometry, and the shape on there is called a star tetrahedron. And so I knew what that was. So I found the first line that goes from Edmonton to Ottawa. I found that first. And then I found the one that goes down through to the southwest. And I found the one going back up to Edmonton, just kind of by approximation. And I thought, well, let me see if I can find another one. And I did. And
connecting the dots. So. Yeah.
Exactly, literally connecting the dots. And because I was interested in this kind of thing, and by that time there were a lot of alternative researchers on YouTube that would be talking about these places that lined up. What I did was I extended the lines out on that flat map, went as far as I could with it, and I wanted to see the other side, so I switched over to a globe, and that was the only tool I had available. But it whether my methods are sound or not, I can tell you that I got information back, a ton of information back. And I toyed with the idea of trying to get some kind of grid program. And I thought, I could spend a lot of money on that and not be able to figure it out. So I just used the old eyeball method. And in some ways, it may be a kind of rougher than the ones that set the grid up because they were perfect.
What's the significance
with
in
their
those
alignments.
cities? Well, what's the significance in your opinion with the cities that make these that align with the star tetrahedron?
I think everything existed in geometric relationship to each other, and not only geometric but sacred geometry, and that it lined up with the heavens. Everything was in perfect alignment all over the earth, that it was a beautiful and balanced civilization. And the people who lived in it knew what they were here for. They knew what they were doing. They knew what the shape of the earth was. They knew their capabilities. And I'll show you another interesting thing here in just a second, but everything was lined up perfectly. And in our history, and I think of all, the researchers doing this kind of thing, we can agree on the historical narrative is basically garbage.
I agree 100%.
It's garbage. And you see that when you start looking at it, and you look at specific places and you see, well, this building was said to have been built in, during the Depression, and it's a massive, huge classical building, like the Supreme Court building was said to have been built between 1932 and 1935. Massive. What we would consider Greco-Roman architecture. And a lot of these buildings were said to have been built in the US during the Depression. A lot of them in Louisiana, Baton Rouge. During, Huey Long's, it's like, what?
It's crazy.
You got to be kidding me.
Right in your backyard.
But that's what they've done. They've covered up the truth that there was a highly advanced ancient civilization, not only in North America, but all over the earth. Just go outside your front door. The evidence is everywhere, but we've had blinders put on because we've been taught that it's not there. There was nothing here. The land was free for the taking, nothing but heathens. And what they did was they turned the builders sent them back to the Stone Age. And then they brought the whole race thing in and, flipped it on its head. And, now we think we've got the racial division and skin color and all
disconnection.
Well, it wasn't before. It wasn't before. That's just their way of controlling us, so we hurt each other and take our focus off the ones that are actually behind that. And you don't have to look any further than the big names in history and the big names in the corporate world to find out who's behind it. And now that's on the surface level. Now there may be layers on top of that of off-world beings and non-physical entities, which I think are part of it too. But the reason they've gone through so much trouble is because of the prize, which is us, and not only humanity, but the Garden of Eden that the earth was. And they're bringing all this artificial stuff in. They don't care about us. They just care about us as an energy source.
I have a note. Well, since you're on this slide right here, before you bring up another slide, I was going to ask you about, so what's the significance in the star tetrahedron and the Merkaba? What important role does it play with ancient civilizations of the past, and why is this not well known with the average Joe? Do certain secret societies hold this sacred geometry as the key to the universe, for lack of a better term?
Right. They've kept this information hidden. There have been a couple of teachers that have been bringing it back in. I learned about it through Drunvalo Melchizedek. There are probably others, but I think he was the main one starting in the early 70s. And it's vortex space mathematics. It's the shape of the torus, and that's the shape of our light body, and the shape of the Earth's light body, and the shape of the universe, and how everything's connected. And so it's a very, I guess you could say, high level mathematics, but if you kind of drill down into how the universe is structured on numbers, it all relates to that. But it was used for good. And unfortunately, I think evil saw an opportunity. And that's where I think the Mudflood comes in. I think evil saw an opportunity to come in and crash the party and try to take everything over for themselves. And they almost got away with it. But I really believe, I don't like to see what's unfolding, but I also believe that they're going to be held accountable, and that they're are forces behind the scenes that are here with us. And that the good people in the world that know about a lot of the stuff have been actively involved in trying to figure out a way to take it down. And so it seems like for whatever reason, the only way they saw forward was to let certain things play out a certain way, which is, I think, what we're seeing right now. And in order to bring in a higher level of intervention that might not be acceptable if it didn't get too bad. If it didn't get as bad as it needed to get. And I think we're in the middle of that right now.
So what else were you wanting to show us, Michelle?
Yeah, I just wanted to show you something, and I need to figure out the easiest way to find it. So let me.
So while she's trying to find that, I want to thank everybody that's following the Facebook page. We're over 150,000 followers. Thank you very much. Like I say it all the time. I don't know. They just created a life of its own. And thank you to all the Patreons. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. And everywhere else, all social medias on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Thank you very much. But today we're talking with Michelle Gibson. You can go to her website, piercingtheveilofillusion.com. Go to her YouTube channel, which I did a little screen share at the beginning. Just Michelle Gibson, and she pops right up. But yeah, just she's all over, and I'll try to put the links in the description for you to follow her. But what were you going to show us, Michelle?
So I wanted to show you this. Now, one of the things that I've been doing is following up on comments that people have left me. And I've done a considerable amount of work on that. And somebody had left me a comment a while back about the 7 Salem solar eclipse. Now, I remember the solar eclipse happening because that was when I first moved to Arizona, the Sedona area. And I actually participated in kind of a nice ceremony, if you will, when that happened. And then didn't think twice about it. And then I heard about this from a viewer, and this eclipse goes through at least 7 historical Salems. Some are still there, some aren't. And so I decided to go through the Salems. And the first thing off the bat that I found, first of all, is that there's the one in 2017 and there's another one in 2024, a 7-year period. I got the most awesome comments from viewers on this one because a lot of people experienced major spiritual awakening kind of things on that day. It was really interesting. And the numbers are really interesting for it too. But I wanted to show you that in 2024, somebody else left me a comment that the 2024 solar eclipse path goes through 9 Salems. So 2017 goes through 7 and 2024 goes through 9.
I may have to take a 4.5 hour drive to Little Rock or 3.5 hour drive up north to Little Rock.
So the path of totality is when where this is where it gets the darkest during the total solar eclipse. And there are other examples. This is the one I know of. I think other people have done other research, but how do you explain that? Other than this civilization was so on top of all events in the heavens and the earth, that these cities are actually lined up in certain ways in certain places for certain eclipses. You know, like it's all perfectly organized. And this was this one here, the 2024 path. I had actually, before I started doing the research for this, I had researched those cities because they showed up in a linear alignment that I had found. And so I had just done the research for that. It's almost city for city. So it was lined up perfectly. And then the center where it got the darkest, and might take me just a second to find it, is a place called Giant City State Park, just south of Carbondale in Maconda, Illinois.
You did all this on this article?
What I did was, yeah, I went through and I looked at each place that was on the path.
You have a lot of information right here. Wow. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And the cumulative result of that is I've got all this stuff rolling around in my head, and I'm making connections faster and faster because I've already looked at so much stuff.
Faster than you can put it down, right?
That I can, that I can go back and look at it. Let me see here real quick. That's not what I'm looking for.
The center of something. So
anyway, it's fascinating. So I lived in Wyoming too, so that's kind of interesting.
And I guarantee you that line that's going through those cities in 2024, probably back then, I would bet if you did a lot of digging or research, those cities within that line, that's probably not the first time with all these cities with the 7 Salem solar eclipse or whatever. I'm assuming that happens in cycles, and I would think that these cities, if you looked and dug, have a lot of Tartarian buildings or buildings that got demolished back in the the World Fair or the exhibitions and all that,
Right. And Tartaria is the best known because I think the research came out of Asia, which was the historical Tartaria. But this civilization that was worldwide had its roots in Mu, in Lemuria. And so that's where you get the word Moors, M-U'-U-R-S from. And so they're ancient. And this is the empress of the Washita that passed away not too long ago. And they got some kind of recognition through the UN of being the oldest indigenous civilization on Earth. And, that was the imperial seat in Monroe that we talked about earlier. And then you see things like, was Egypt and Israel, for that matter, already long established in America, because you find, references to an Egyptian presence in BC America, and you get Hebrew archers in ancient Illinois, and I think the reason for that was because it was all part of the same civilization. And when it got taken down and this reset happened, they just, fragmented it and, took things apart that were actually originally part of the same thing. And this is where I'm going here. Giant City State Park experienced longest period of totality at 2 minutes and 40 seconds. And it's in Makanda, Makanda. Well, it doesn't take, rocket science to figure out that sounds like Wakanda. And it was called the Star of Egypt. But Giant City State Park is, they want us to think that's natural. But if you look at other things there, and again, this is south of Carbondale, which is known as Little Egypt. That whole area of southern Illinois was known as Little Egypt. And, you see their walls.
Wow.
They're ancient masonry walls. But we don't see that. We see natural because that's what they want us to see. And this is just one example of gazillion. It's
remarkable.
So, anyway, there's just a lot to find, and that's why I say you just kind of have to be willing to step back and look at things differently and accept that we have not been given the right information for a reason. They don't want us to know. They want us controllable. And individually we're more powerful than we realize, and collectively we're definitely more powerful than we realize, which is why they want to keep us shut down and distracted and arguing and not seeing what's in the environment around us.
Keeping us divided.
Keep us divided because it turns our attention away from the people that are pulling the strings in the background, and set up this control system. So it's like they reverse engineered the grid that was originally for good and turned it into a control system. And I'm just going to show you.
Can I show you this real quick? You were talking about this architecture and stuff like that. I'm not sure. I don't know if this was an exhibition or a world fair. I think in San Francisco, I believe.
Probably.
I don't.
Yep.
I got it wrote down somewhere. And if you look closely, but look at this. Look at this. Like, is this crazy or what? Like, and then the writing up here, the moon sinks. I'm gonna try to. It's I don't know. I'm gonna try to read it because some of the words are. But the moon sinks yonder in the west, while in the east the glorious sun behind the herald dawn appears. Thus rise and set in constant change. I believe those shining orbs and regul. I can't see what that says. Regulate.
Regulate, probably.
I guess the V's tripping me out. And regulate the very life of this world.
Our world. Yeah.
Our world. The V's tripping me out.
So, well, I can tell you that carving something into stone is a lot easier than building a structure like that. And I think they've done that a lot. You know, they'll carve a date in and say, we did that. And over and over again, they will tell you with a straight face that this was temporary. It was built to be temporary.
I wish I had a closer image like right here. I bet that's some Egyptian stuff here too. I would, but it's not very, the details isn't very good there. But let me go ahead and stop that share. And I think it was San Francisco World Fair or in the early 1900s or 1800s.
There was
I'm not sure.
One in San Francisco in 1915 that was supposed to celebrate the rebuilding of San Francisco after the fire. There was another one in San Diego that was supposed to celebrate the opening of the Panama Canal. You know, and it just seems to me like the word exposition is like setting the story that, or the narrative that you want people to see. And that's what they were doing. They were saying, we did this and, oh, you know, we're going to get rid of it. And in a few cases, some of the buildings are left in different places, but
do you think that
most of them.
Do you think that this was from the old world, from what they call Tartaria? So this wasn't created. So this is from who knows when. It
was built by whoever the real people were that built it. It wasn't built by the people that said they built it.
Man.
And
it's a massive cover up going on.
Look up the Legion of Honor Museum in San Francisco, Michael. Legion of Honor Museum.
Legion of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's still standing. It's like the Louvre in Paris.
All right, let me share the screen here. Boom. Is this it?
Yep.
Wow.
So what do you think?
Man, it looks like so does this go far? This looks like Roman Greek architecture. So does this go further back than so was that architecture and that knowledge already here in America a lot older than what the Roman architecture was?
Or contemporaneous, that it was all, you know, it wasn't built when we were told and who we were told built it. So if you look up the Wikipedia just to get the date on this and when they said it was built. Okay, so they said it was built in 1924. Actually, they said it was founded in 1924.
That's when they found it.
Right. So they're telling us, you know, so we can't build like that today.
Yeah.
But we could in the early 20th century, is what they want us to believe.
It just blows my mind.
I mean, look up at the Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. And it was built during the Depression. If you look it up, seriously, that's what they tell you.
Yeah.
Go to Wikipedia. Go to Wikipedia for the date. Just a date check. It's 1932 to 1935.
Let's see. Where are you at? Yeah, 1932 to 1935. So this architecture, Michelle, this architecture, was it was a lot, I'm not saying all, was it a lot of it covered in mud, and it was just uncovered, and that's when they found it in 1920 or 19 whatever, you know?
So I'm of the belief, what I'm seeing is, and I wanted to give the eclipse path as an example of, is that random? You know, it doesn't seem to me, it's not random.
No,
you know, that
no.
this civilization existed for a very long time. They knew where they were, they knew how to build, they, you know, everything was connected to celestial events. And that, let's see specifically where I wanted to go with that. So I'm seeing this civilization that existed in the ancient past, like giant city, on up through the present day, that we're still using the buildings. Oh, and we're told they were built within the last 100 years. And that what I'm seeing is that there was one major reset. And there's a lot of different sets of opinions about what happened. For a long time, I've landed on the idea that there was something that was deliberately caused. Could have been one event, it could be several events during a short period of time. But something caused a liquefaction, and or something happened and things got covered up. And that what I think was going on when certain things were supposed to have been built, like railroads and subways and all that other stuff, that they were actually digging it out and making it useful until they could replace it with cars and trucks and, you know, other things. But that infrastructure was pre-existing, and not only was it pre-existing, it was part of the grid system. And you find the exact same things again all over the earth. You find the subway systems, you find amusement parks.
I was going to ask you about that, Michelle. How many resets do you think the human races have in the past? And you think it's probably maybe just one, or maybe just a few, or what?
Well, I think there was a happy, harmonious, continuous civilization from ancient times to relatively modern times. That something was done to hijack the timeline and the earth so they could come in and they could take it over and they could restart civilization, the new world, from the old world, the way that they wanted it, so that they could take everything over and suck up the wealth and suck up everything and, you know, basically trash humanity. You know, which is in effect what they've done. Is we think we're doing good, but we're really not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just give us enough to stay alive and pay taxes and, you know, buy things. But their intention towards the human race is not happy for us. And, you know, I think that's again what we're seeing play out right now. And I'm not pessimistic about our future. I was for a while. A couple of years ago, it was like, holy cow, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Because I
kind of go back and forth. I'm optimistic, and then I look at people that are just brain drained, zombified. That, you know, the ones that are giving you the finger in traffic and yelling at the TV because their team lost. Then I get a little pessimistic, you know. But yes. I go back and forth.
Yeah, and I remain optimistic. I've got to just pull my head out of it completely and just live my life without too much. It's hard for me to do that, but and that's one thing about my research is I kind of throw myself into it, and with the connections coming faster, it's like I can't get it out fast enough, because I'm just really starting to see deep into the level of deception. And you know, they got into our languages all around the same time. You know, they basically brought in the history they wanted us to learn and gave us these historical figures that may or may not have been based on real figures. Some of them were, some of them could have been completely made up later on. And I go into all of this on my blog and my YouTube channel. So, it's really a lot of information, but you hear about the Illuminati and you hear about the secret societies, and there's something there and something going on that doesn't particularly care for humanity. It needs us, but they don't want us. They don't want us in an advanced form.
I agree. And since we're kind of talking about that, which I want to touch on some more other things that I know we're kind of giving a lot of Cliff Notes version of stuff, because your material is so vast, your research is so vast, and I understand whenever you're getting these what they call downloads and things are just, it's hard to get it out because my mind, like right now, when you're talking about these things, my mind is just going 100 different directions because I'm connecting this dot and that. But a note that I had since we was kind of talking about it, or you were, I feel like the true ancient knowledge and this sacred geometry is deliberately hidden from us by a certain few. Maybe that certain few, rather it be a secret society or some other malevolent force in the world, is being guided by some dark entity with this agenda to keep humanity in the dark and to keep Earth a prison planet. We are a species that has amnesia of the past, and these entities keep us in a perpetual state of historical amnesia because it makes us disconnected from everything in the natural world, each other, and disconnected from our place in the stars. What's your thoughts on that, Michelle?
I agree. That's exactly what's been going on. But if you start talking about stuff like that, the label conspiracy theorist comes out, or you're crazy, and but they're the ones that don't want you to find out the depth of what's been going on here. And it's crazy. I mean, the mining of the earth is substantial. Where's it all going to? I mean, there's big, great holes in the earth. It's like they mine everything they can and then they leave and just create devastation, environmental devastation, cultural devastation for the people that live there. I don't think it's all staying here. I think it's going somewhere else. So the earth is being harvested and mined. We're being harvested and mined, and something is just trying to get all they can of the resources that are available here, including the life.
I agree. And they're keeping our true origins hidden while enslaving us, humanity, through different means, and that will put a damper on our true spiritual and conscious evolution. It keeps us from knowing our true potential.
But we're living in that time of waking up. And that's the exciting thing about being a truther right now is, I wouldn't have been able to do this 10, 15 years ago. It would have been too hard, I think, with the blinders still being in place. And part of my hope is that my real journey with this started around 2016, 2017, 2018. So 2018 was when I started making videos and blogging. Everything had to happen a certain way for that to happen. People that I met, situations, and so on and so forth. It couldn't have happened sooner. And so that gives me hope about a divine timing, or some kind of timing beyond my control. I've never done anything like this before in my life. My degree's in social work and psychology. I spent almost 13 years as a nursing home social worker. I'm not a trained historian, but I think that allows me to be open to alternative information that's been removed.